Dear friends, have you ever contemplated the unsettling notion that another entity might be living your life right under your nose? So, like on my previous videos, I will ask you 10 minutes off, you value time, and most important, please watch until end, where I describe how to protect from this type of fraud. And of course, I will ask you to subscribe and hit like button. Quite unnerving, wouldn't you say? But brace yourself, for this is the unnerving reality transpiring in the realm of synthetic identity fraud. This isn't just an average identity theft. No, absolutely not. It's far more perilous. Synthetic identity fraud is the frightening newcomer, lurking in the obscure corners of financial deception. It's a master illusionist, a sophisticated chameleon, seamlessly meshing real with falsified information to spawn entirely new, phantom identities. It's the modern Frankenstein's monster, meticulously cobbled together to form an entity that might not even correlate to a human. Contrary to classic identity theft akin to a stealthy pickpocket swiping your wallet, synthetic identity fraud is more akin to a conniving charlatan staging a grand theatrical under your name, all the while you remain blissfully ignorant of the charade. It's a devious puppeteer, skillfully maneuvering behind a deceptive facade of counterfeited information, leaving you to face the harsh consequences. The dawn of digital technology and the global interconnectedness of financial markets have provided a fruitful cradle for this monstrous fraud. It lurks and breeds like a relentless virus, exploiting frailties in our systems, creeping its tendrils across international borders and vast oceans. It predominantly targets countries with relaxed regulatory surveillance, but let this not deceive you. This is far from a localized issue. Synthetic identity fraud is a colossal global epidemic, a terrifying puppet show staged for a worldwide audience, wreaking havoc on unsuspecting individuals and businesses, from the remote corners of Timbuktu to the bustling metropolis of Tokyo. It's an omnipresent threat that doesn't discriminate, a ruthless predator hiding in the ominous shadows of our vastly interconnected world. But you may question, why should this concern you? Why should you lose sleep over some faceless swindler creating fictitious identities? The reason is simple yet harsh. The ramifications of synthetic identity fraud are severe and widespread. It can obliterate credit scores, amass insurmountable debt mountains, and create formidable barriers in accessing crucial financial services. It can rock economies, inflate expenditures for businesses and consumers, and gradually erode trust in financial institutions. In essence, synthetic identity fraud isn't just an assault on individuals, it's a devastating crime against our society. It's a complex and sophisticated form of financial fraud, morphing the very face of deception. And bear in mind, synthetic identity fraud is a horrifying global phenomenon that impacts unsuspecting individuals and businesses on a worldwide scale. Imagine waking up one day to find your credit score ruined and debts you never incurred. Suddenly, your financial stability is shattered, your dreams of buying a home or car deferred. This is the harsh reality for victims of synthetic identity fraud, a malicious scheme that leaves individuals grappling with ruined credit scores, unmanageable debts, and severe difficulties accessing essential financial services. These individuals are often left floundering in a sea of bureaucracy, trying to prove they didn't accumulate these debts, and fighting to restore their once good credit standing. The journey to recovery can be long, arduous, and emotionally draining. It's a nightmare that no one should ever have to experience. But the devastating consequences of synthetic identity fraud extend beyond the individual victims. This insidious crime has a far-reaching societal impact. It fuels financial instability, creating ripples that can unsettle entire economies. It's like a silent storm, slowly eroding the very foundations of our financial systems. Businesses, too, bear the brunt of synthetic identity fraud. They face higher costs due to increased security measures and loss recoveries. Small businesses in particular can find these additional costs crippling. It's not just about the money lost to fraudsters, it's about the increased expenses and the potential loss of customer trust. Furthermore, consumers end up paying the price as businesses pass on these costs through higher prices for goods and services. It's an insidious cycle, where everyone, regardless of their direct involvement with the fraud, ends up losing something. Perhaps the most profound impact of synthetic identity fraud is the erosion of trust in financial institutions. When people can't trust their banks, their credit card companies, or their loan providers, it undermines the very essence of our financial systems. The faith we place in these institutions is crucial to their functioning, and synthetic identity fraud can shatter this trust. The consequences of synthetic identity fraud can be devastating, affecting not just individuals but the broader society. It's a silent epidemic, spreading its tentacles far and wide, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. So, how can we protect ourselves from this invisible enemy? The first line of defense against synthetic identity fraud starts with you, the individual. It's essential to safeguard your personal information. Regularly monitoring your credit reports can help you spot any suspicious activity. Strong passwords are your digital armor, protecting your online accounts from intruders. And remember, think twice before sharing sensitive data online. The internet is a public place, and you never know who's watching. But individuals can't fight this battle alone. Financial institutions play a pivotal role in the war against synthetic identity fraud. They're the gatekeepers of the financial system, and they have the tools and resources to detect and prevent fraudulent activities. By enhancing their fraud detection systems, they can spot the telltale signs of synthetic identities. Implementing robust identity verification processes can stop fraudsters in their tracks, preventing them from creating and monetizing synthetic identities. There's also strength in numbers. Collaboration between businesses is key to combating synthetic identity fraud. Sharing information about known fraudsters creates a network of defense, making it harder for criminals to slip through the cracks. By working together, financial institutions can create a hostile environment for fraudsters, disrupting their operations and making it more difficult for them to exploit the system. But it's not just about defense. It's about taking the fight to the fraudsters. That's why it's crucial to report any suspicious activity. If you spot something strange on your credit report, don't ignore it. Report it to your bank, your credit card company, and the relevant authorities. It's better to be safe than sorry. So it's clear that protecting against synthetic identity fraud is no simple task. It requires a multifaceted approach, combining individual vigilance, institutional safeguards, and cooperative efforts. By working together, we can turn the tide against synthetic identity fraud and create a safer financial future for everyone. Protecting against synthetic identity fraud requires a multifaceted approach. But what role does the government play in all this? Well, it's a heavy one, to be sure. The government stands as a line of defense in the battle against synthetic identity fraud, wielding its powers of legislation, regulation, and enforcement. Let's start with legislation. Governments can craft laws that fortify consumer protections and bolster data security standards. These laws are designed to make it harder for fraudsters to create synthetic identities and to increase the penalties when they're caught in the act. Laws can also mandate financial institutions to implement stronger identity verification processes and fraud detection systems. Now, on to regulation. Governments oversee financial institutions, ensuring that they comply with the rules and regulations designed to prevent synthetic identity fraud. If institutions fall short, they face penalties, which incentivizes them to stay on their toes. But it doesn't stop there. Governments also play a crucial role in enforcement. Through various agencies, they work to investigate and prosecute cases of synthetic identity fraud. This enforcement isn't just about bringing criminals to justice. It's about sending a clear message that synthetic identity fraud won't be tolerated. And then, there's the power of collaboration. Governments, financial institutions, and law enforcement can form a formidable alliance in the fight against synthetic identity fraud. By sharing information and resources, they can uncover fraud networks, track down perpetrators, and prevent future crimes. Think of it this way: the government is like a conductor, orchestrating a symphony of measures to protect consumers and maintain the integrity of the financial system. From drafting laws and enforcing regulations, to prosecuting fraudsters and fostering collaboration, the government is in a unique position to lead the fight against synthetic identity fraud. In the end, the battle against synthetic identity fraud is a shared responsibility. It involves all of us, individuals, businesses, and yes, governments, playing our parts and working together. And so, we return to our initial question. What role does the government play in all this? Well, a vital one indeed. Governments play a crucial role in combating synthetic identity fraud. What should you do if you fall victim to synthetic identity fraud? This is a question nobody wants to encounter, but it's crucial to know the answer. Synthetic identity fraud is not just a faceless crime, it's a personal attack that can have devastating consequences. If you find yourself ensnared in this complex web of deceit, immediate action is key. Your first step should be to contact your financial institutions. Inform them about the fraud and request their assistance in resolving the issue. This could involve closing compromised accounts, reversing fraudulent transactions, and opening new secure accounts. Next, it's time to secure your credit. Place fraud alerts or credit freezes on your accounts. Both are protective measures that can prevent fraudsters from opening new accounts in your name. A fraud alert tells credit companies to verify your identity before issuing new credit, whereas a credit freeze locks down your credit entirely. Your fight against synthetic identity fraud doesn't stop there. You must take it a step further by filing reports with the relevant authorities. This could include your local police department and the Federal Trade Commission. In the United States, the FTC is the national body responsible for dealing with identity theft and can provide resources to help you recover. Remember, while you are the immediate victim, synthetic identity fraud impacts everyone. It destabilizes financial systems, drives up costs for businesses and consumers, and erodes trust in financial institutions. Therefore, your actions not only help you recover, but also contribute to the wider fight against this pervasive crime. In the grand scheme of things, synthetic identity fraud is a sophisticated form of financial fraud that involves creating fictitious identities for illicit gain. It's a global problem that affects individuals, businesses, and economies. It's a crime that requires collective efforts to detect, prevent, and prosecute. So if you find yourself a victim of synthetic identity fraud, take heart. You're not alone, and there are steps you can take to reclaim your identity and restore your financial health. Remember, every action you take helps in the ongoing battle against this insidious crime. Synthetic identity fraud is a sophisticated form of financial fraud that requires collective efforts to detect, prevent, and prosecute. Hope this video will protect you from this type of fraud. Please subscribe to be informed, and of course, please hit like button.